Yesterday, Shara promised to talk about these two things, two methods of practice, namely Dhamma and Paṇḍitā. So today he is going to explain this subject both from the theoretical and practical aspect. Now, the practice of meditation is to guard yourself, to be on your guard with vigilant mindfulness of every arising. That means to note every seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, and all these objects arising at the six sense doors as they arise, obviously. And this is Buddha himself instructed like this. And for the beginners, they are instructed to note simple, easy objects and very few objects. That is the instruction given by the late Venerable Master Sayadaw when you are watching the abdomen and noting rising and falling. Note rising and falling as main objects. And in this way, instructing how to note is according to Desana, teachings, and such practice in accordance with the teaching is known as Dhamma method according to teaching. While noting this main object, rising and falling as main object, while watching the abdomen, if any thoughts arise in the mind, fantasies, imaginations, then it is instructed like this. The reason is that for the beginners, if one is noting one object, he or she may be thinking what to note next. And this way, one will take time and whispering. So when, in the course of the time, in the course of the practice, when one deepens one's concentration and knowledge, then one can note. One is instructed to note all arising, or every arising of the six sense doors as it arises. There are many yogis who are able to practice like this, that is, noting every arising of the six sense, every arising and passing away, mind, body, objects. There are many yogis who can note these objects without remainder, all objects without remainder. So, later on, as one deepens one's mindfulness and concentration, there's no such thing as thinking about what to note next, one after next, and one is able to note every arising as it arises. One comes to such a stage. So such practice of mindfulness of every arising through the six senses as it arises is known as Paṇḍitā method, the method of mindfulness or noting as things arise, as it happens. As one notes every arising as it arises, is object of attention, then one comes to see the real, the actual individual characteristics of our lakkhana of mind, body. And one will see they are arising correctly, exactly, and after they have arisen, it dissolves, it vanishes, disappears. One will see the disappearance as well. In this way, one will see clearly the arising and the disappearance, or going away, coming and going. So, only when one sees this individual characteristic will you see the genesis, the beginning of its arising and vanishing or disappearance after it has arisen. Hence this maxim, only by observing the individual characteristic will you see its arising and passing away. So only when you note at the moment of rising, as it is said, that as you are able to build on this kanika samadhi, momentary concentration, you are bound to observe mind and body separately, and then the cause and effect. And if one continues to practice mindfulness, as one builds up more and more of this kanika samadhi, one is bound to see the beginning, the arising, beginning to arise. The object begins to arise and then passes away, all giving place to the new. That's why it is said that only when you note at the very moment, you will see the arising and passing away. In this way, you embark upon the progressive stages of insight. Udaya Bhaya, this expression. Udaya means arising or genesis, and Bhaya is dissolving or vanishing, disappearing. Hence, one combines these two things: Udaya Bhaya, rising and passing away, coming and going, coming up, appearing and disappearing. So one comes to see the beginning, the middle, and the end of these individual things, characteristics. So unless one sees the true nature of mind and body, one cannot see to observe the arising and passing away. When at this point, during interviews, some yogis or many yogis have been, although they have been instructed to note simply as rising and falling, to understand, to observe the sensation, the stiffness, tension, and movement, and by connecting with the object steadfastly. So, although it has been instructed like this, when they are, and also when noting like this, the limit, the boundary has been specified as from what place to what place should one be noted, should one note that particular object, whether it's rising or falling. So, in the text is given in this connection, Sabakaya Patisamvedi, Sabakaya, the entire aggregate of materiality, Patisamvedi, must be experienced. So, one has got to note the entire materiality, the entire object, as is given by the Sabakaya, from where to where, from which part to which part, as it's been given in the text. Now there are three parts in an object: the beginning, Adi, Madhya, middle, and the Priyosana, the end, the beginning, middle, and the end, which constitute the Sabakaya, the entire aggregate of materiality. So when you're noting rising and falling, the limit, boundary has been given as to from where to where, from beginning to end. You have to note from beginning through to the end. That has been the instruction. So misunderstanding that, one takes time in finding out where it starts, the middle, the beginning of that rising object, and what is the middle of that object, and what is the end of the object. So one is looking for the middle, the beginning, the middle, and the end of that object, whether it be rising or falling. In fact, these three parts, beginning, middle, and the end, are not the actual characteristics, actual thing to be noted. One is misunderstanding that. So they have to be corrected in this way. So they are only to note rising as rising and falling as falling. And instead of looking for purposely where it starts, where is the middle, and where it ends. And it will be, if you're looking like that, if you're observing like that, practicing like that, it will be waste of time and just imagination and fantasies. For example, as has been said yesterday, when you are watching, when you want to know the characteristic of lightning, and without looking up at the time, at the moment of lightning, you will not observe the characteristic of lightning, function and manifestation and so on. And will you know? We will not know the characteristic. You will not know the function, the qualities of this lightning, unless you watch at the very moment of lightning. So too with the mindfulness of these mind-body objects, without noting at their very moment, you will not be able to understand the arising and passing away of that object. So without practicing mindfulness of mind and body, psychophysical object, you will not see the arising and passing away. If you say you see the arising and passing away without noting, then it will not be the real inside knowledge. It is a fake imagination inside knowledge, imaginary inside knowledge. Instead, if you just, instead of noting simply just rising and falling, if you are looking for the beginning, the middle and the end of that object, then it will be time consuming, a wastage of time, and it will not be tantamount to cultivating the actual insight knowledge of arising and passing away. Only when you note at the very moment of arising of the mind-body object, will you observe rising and passing away, then you are said to be developing the insight knowledge, the real insight knowledge. Another example is that the clothes that you are used to wearing, or you are wearing all the time, suppose there are 3 holes in your clothes, and you are not observing it in a casual way, but when somebody looks at it, he or she sees it and tells you, "Oh, there are 3 holes in your clothes." So then you try to look for these holes in your clothes. But when you look for the holes, you cannot look for the holes leaving the clothes aside, leaving it aside, looking for holes in other places. You got to spread out your clothes and look for the holes, because the holes are in the clothes. Quite obvious. And you have to look for the clothes, you have to look for the holes. You cannot just look elsewhere where there are no holes. You must look at the clothes which has holes. First of all, you have to spread out your clothes and look carefully. Then you will find the holes if you look carefully. So, in order to find out these holes, the 3 holes, you've got to look carefully, search your clothes very carefully. You cannot do it without the clothes. You cannot do it outside your clothes, because the clothes are in the holes are in the clothes. So you've got to look at the clothes first. So first the clothes, then the holes. This is the example that one should understand to compare with what you're looking for. So also, just like looking for the holes in the clothes that you are wearing, when you find holes, once you find the holes in the clothes, then you see the flaws in the clothes, and you will not become attached to it. You will not feel delighted in wearing it and using it anymore. Because you see the clothes, you see the holes in the clothes. Once you see the holes in the clothes, there will be less attachment to your clothes, or maybe no attachment at all, and you may throw it away or leave it aside. So too with the practice of mindfulness of every arising in your body, and there are these 3 holes, 3 characteristics, universal characteristics of impermanence and so on, which are undesirable. And when you're looking for these characteristics, you got to look at your body, apply your mind steadfastly on the body, not to look without the body or outside of the body, or practicing mindfulness without or leaving the body aside. So first, you must look at your body. Apply your mindfulness to your body. Pay attention to the body. Then you will find this, as you note, the immediately arising object of attention. Carefully, first you will see the mind and body separately, and then the conditionality, the causal mode. Such is seeing the nature of mind and body. Then, as you continue to practice, as you deepen your practice, you will come to see the arising of this psychophysical phenomena, which are subject to cause and effect. Then, you will see the passing away, or disappearance, or vanishing of this arisen object. So, if you want to know the nature of the object, you have to look in this way. In the body, if you want to see this body, the 3 holes in the body, you must look at the body first. Like looking at the clothes first. You cannot do it without the clothes. In this way you can compare your practice with looking for the holes in the clothes. Although if in the beginning you didn't observe these 3 holes, now you observe these 3 holes. Previously, before you saw these 3 holes, you thought it is very good, very pleasurable. You become attached to it. It's fancy dress and so on. You like to wear it all the time without knowing that there are 3 holes. You become attached to this kind of clothes. So it is sure that when you find these holes, then you lose your attachment. You lose your interest to use this clothes anymore. So losing interest, losing attachment, not having attachment, free from attachment is on what do you feel uninterested? Do you feel detached? Is it 3 holes? You become detached on the 3 holes, or the clothes which has 3 holes? That the 3 holes, or that the clothes which has 3 holes? Normally you might say that, oh, I don't like these holes. You may say that, oh, I don't become attached. I don't want these 3 holes. So when you say you don't want to wear this clothes, means you are detached from these clothes. Actually, your interest, you lose interest as regards the clothes, not the holes. The clothes which have the holes. Because you don't want to wear this anymore, so you become detached from these clothes which have the holes. So the freedom from the attachment, becoming detached, is detached with respect to the clothes which have the holes, not the holes, not just the holes. So too with the practice of meditation, when you see the universal, the 3 characteristics of impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and selflessness of mind, body. This is Adinava, seeing the misery, feeling them miserable. They are miserable, not pleasurable. Seeing them as misery instead of pleasure. Before you saw this, you are attached to your body. Once you see the 3 things, the 3 flaws in your body, then you don't want to use it, you don't want it anymore. You can detach to it. So, by seeing this characteristic, this universal characteristic of impermanence and so on, about the mind, body, then seeing the impermanent nature of the objects, in most cases, you become somewhat detached as regards your mind and body. To some extent, you will be detached, or detached in one way or another, in a small way or in a large way. To some extent, you will be detached. Not to mention when you observe other characteristics, such as unsatisfactoriness, suffering, the characteristic of suffering, the nature of suffering, and the nature of the uncontrollable nature of selflessness, soullessness. Then you become more and more detached. You feel miserable about this mind and body. So, when you are attached, you think it is good. You think that these things are pleasurable. But now you find that you become detached to this, because you don't see them as pleasurable, you see them as misery. Such is the advantage, the immediate advantage of developing this insight knowledge. So as much as you are free from attachment, as much as you are detached, previously you become attached, now you don't want them. When you become detached, you will not perform actions. So actions leading to new existences, new becoming. leading to a round of suffering. Now you are detached, you become free, you are free from attachment. So you will not strive for the continuance of this mind and body. You won't try. You will perform actions leading to new existences. What you will strive is to reach the ultimate cessation of mind and body. Such is walking the right path. By walking the right path, one reaches the right destination. A destination in terms of Nibbana, free of suffering, ultimate cessation of Nibbana. Yes, according to the maxim, it's only by observing the individual characteristic will you see its rising and passing away. So in accordance with that, this expression also comes up, Udava abhavato. Udava, after having arisen, or after Genesis, abhavato disappears, becomes non-existent, gone. It's gone with the wind. Seeing the impermanent nature, because it has arisen and then it disappears, goes away, disappears, vanishes. So this is seen, observed through personal experience, in definite sense, not through what you learn from the book, or from what the teachers say, or from your fantasies, imaginations, concepts, intellectualizations, because you are practicing mindfulness at the very moment. You observe this arising and passing away of psychophysical phenomena, with the condition of the psychophysical phenomena. And then their unsatisfactoriness and selflessness. Here we are concerned first with anicca lakkhana, the characteristic of impermanence, or impermanent characteristic. Seeing the arising and passing away, one comes to understand the characteristic of impermanence. It becomes another maxim, fixed law. That without seeing the rising and passing away, just through your own book knowledge and what the teachers say, or from what you think, such kind of knowledge is not the real one. It is the conceptual knowledge is not the real one. Only the experiential knowledge is the real one. At this point, the commentaries have further explained for general knowledge, when one observes the impermanence of the psychophysical phenomena as anicca veritable, meaning one should realize anicca, or anicca should be realized. The next one is aniccata veritable. One should realize the anicca characteristic, or the anicca characteristic should be realized. And that one is anicca nupassana, viridava. One should realize the knowledge of the contemplation of anicca, or the knowledge of anicca contemplation, the knowledge by contemplating as impermanent. So these three things. So anicca should be realized, anicca lakkhana, anicca characteristic should be realized, and anicca contemplation also should be known. And as has been given, furthermore, there's aniccanti kanda panchakam. The 5 aggregates of mind and body, such as seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, are all anicca, or impermanent things, or impermanence. Because initially they did not exist. They came from nowhere. Now they came up. Now they come up. They appear, and then disappears. In this way, one sees the impermanent characteristic, the impermanence of these psychophysical phenomena. And hence is the expression, these 5 aggregates of mind and body. In other words, mind and body, or every seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, make up the five aggregates as objects of clinging. For the yogis who are observing, or the yogis who are observing objects arising through the six sense doors all the time, as they arise, one is observing this mind and body, the conditionality. One comes to cultivate this knowledge, known as samasana jnana, knowledge, verified knowledge by comprehension, comprehending the three characteristics, comprehending and verifying the three characteristics through one's own personal experience, not through hearsay and so on. And then when one continues to practice, one is bound to come and see, experience the fleeting momentary nature of experience, udyabhya jnana, and so on, embarking upon the progressive insight of knowledge, progressive series of insight. So every time one knows, one sees that everything is in a state of flux, nothing is constant, in a state of constant flux, arising and passing away, seeing the impermanent nature of these five aggregates as objects of clinging. In other words, the psychophysical objects, mind and body. The reason is that because they arise and pass away, they come up, they disappear, they appear, they disappear. Then one comes to recognize it as impermanent. And for those who are very dedicated, practice carefully, one is bound to see, observe this nature in a few days. Such is recognizing things as impermanent. So when one sees the impermanent, one comes to recognize the characteristic sign or the mark of impermanence. As has been given earlier on, when lightning takes place in a dark cloud, in the darkness of night, then the lightning comes up. No sooner has it come up, it disappears. It passes away. So, how would you know? Is it permanent or impermanent? You would answer it as impermanent. Of course, it is impermanent because it passes away. Why is it? Isn't it that it appears from nowhere, then it disappears at once? So it comes up, goes away. In this way, one recognizes it as having the characteristic of impermanence. Other commentaries are given abhavato, abhavakaro, anicca lakkhana. The effect of is the characteristic of coming and going, characteristic of appearing and disappearing. Just like we are talking about this lightning, which we are talking about. It comes out from nowhere and then is gone. So one sees the impermanent characteristic, the nature, the characteristic, the mark of characteristic, the mark or the characteristic of impermanence. So too in the body we have these objects which arises such as the stiffness, tension, movement, heat, cold and all these things. They arise and no sooner have they arisen, they are gone. They go away, they disappear, they vanish. So that one comes to recognize the impermanent characteristic of these mind-body, such as knowing the characteristic of impermanence. So here we have another fixed law, maxim niyama, that the rising and passing away is the nature lakkhana, the characteristic of impermanence. So let's say when you are watching the body, paying attention to the body and watching every object arising, for instance, heat arises in your body, and this heat as such is nature, impermanent or impermanence. Then while you are noting, it disappears. Such is nature lakkhana, the impermanent characteristic or characteristic of impermanence. Because in the beginning there was nothing. It comes up from nowhere and then it's gone. Such is nature lakkhana, the characteristic of nature. So too while you are noting, you see the rising and passing away. And this kind of knowledge, contemplation, is known as anicca nupassana or anicca nupassana jnana or vipassana jnana, the knowledge by contemplating anicca, or the knowledge of anicca contemplation or insight knowledge. This will be discussed tomorrow.